Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Local Matters Podcast, or should I say the podcast formerly known as Local Matters Podcast. We, in a new year, are making a lot of really big changes, and that comes with some time as far as getting the rebranding structured and all that. But we are making some big shifts here. We're trending
big changes.
Trending sort of away from a lot of things that we have known in the past, and solidifying some things that have become very well known in the past, not the least of which is sitting next to me, as we know, is Justice James.
How you doing?
Those of you who have heard him but never seen him before, this is what he looks like. I know it's terrifying. This is what I've had to endure.
Beautiful, Nick. It's beautiful.
This is what I have had to endure on y'all's behalf for the past several months of having this guy on the seat next to me. One of the things that we are going to do in this new year is James is now officially a partner on this podcast, right? So
locked it down.
He is a full-time fixture. He is no longer considered a regular guest because it just didn't work. You, the people, voted with your, I would say dollar, but we're not making any money doing this. So you, the people, voted with your subscriptions. Numbers don't lie, friends. I actually do look at the views. I look at the metrics on this podcast, and
I overwhelmingly won.
It was undeniable, and I cannot tell you how upset I am about that.
Oh, he cried.
Really,
he cried and cried.
Really was very sad to see the fact, but it is an undeniable fact that the numbers go way up. Activity goes way up whenever James is here. So
the people want the ginger.
So James is gonna be here throughout the remainder of the existence of this cast. Another thing that we're going to do is we are eventually going to change the name of the podcast. We are still working on exactly what that's going to be. And we're going to trend away from, just because it's become very clear to me that the local matters is a really important thing to understand. And make no mistake, I really do feel that politics genuinely matters most at the local level. The problem is in the DFW area alone, there are how many municipalities? There's hundreds, right? There's all sorts of different local areas, and we just don't have the ability in a 1 hour episode to an hour and a half episode to cover something that is going to be suitable for as many audience members as possible. So what we've done is we've broadened it. We're going to talk about the state of Texas. This is a podcast about the Texas perspective on various issues.
The great Lone Star State.
That's right. There may be some national issues. We will start going a little bit more into that. Again, I really kind of cringe at that, but nonetheless, it is powerful to say, what is the Texas perspective on X or Y or something that's going on the national stage. We're also going to make sure that we do continue to bring that local content as it pertains to Texas itself. So what is happening not just in the world abroad, and how does Texas fit into that, but also what's happening in Texas itself.
And what the viewpoint from Texas is.
Yes.
Or should be, in our opinion.
Should be. And our opinion is essentially fact, right?
Pretty much.
Now, we will also stereotype Texans 100% on this show, because most Texans, and you can back me up if I'm wrong.
I will.
It's, in fact, especially back me up if I'm wrong, because then it'll mask the fact that I'm wrong. But especially a lot of the people out in Texas don't mind being stereotyped, because stereotypes all too often, especially when it comes to our beloved state, is true.
Usually.
For example, most people, I've done a lot of traveling in my life, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you Texans, you guys are super arrogant and you think you should be our own country. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely correct.
All Texans wear boots. Correct.
Yeah, I'm not wearing my boots today.
Mm-hmm.
I own several pairs of
Might as well be from Oklahoma, Nick.
I own several pairs of boots. And don't you put that evil on me. Oh my goodness. This is why I hate having you on the podcast.
I love it.
Nonetheless, we are going to talk about broad spectrum issues, about what Texans should think, or what most Texans do think, and kind of explore the nuance of the Texas culture as it pertains to these various items. So, James.
Yes, sir.
I have talked a lot. I guess I should give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, because you are going to be a permanent fixture on this podcast, and say something that you'd like to say to your adoring fans out there, of which you apparently have many. So.
Sorry, ladies. I'm taken.
You got a baby on the way.
I do have a baby on the way.
You got a baby coming in
less than a week.
Literally a couple of days.
Less than a week. Yeah.
Little baby.
Old Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
You know.
Clarence Thomas Alito Metcalf.
Yep. Sotomayor. You've got the Sotomayor in there
Sotomayor,
too.
yeah,
It's
Sotomayor.
all in there. That way that kid can
Sotomayor
make sure he
Metcalf.
reaches all the top ladders of politics. Um,
Sotomayor.
Nothing really much about me. I'm just happy to be here. I am the reason we're changing this because Nick is, of course, wrong. As he tries to say he's right, he's wrong.
General rule of thumb, just assume I'm right.
Yeah. I really don't have too much to say besides let's get this going. Let's have some fun.
Rock and roll. So, first thing, big another thing that we got to find some names for, right? Big segment. What are we talking about today broadly? What's the Texas perspective, the Tex-spective on a not necessarily, not
I
necessarily.
see what you did there.
Not necessarily something that's happening in the news, but just a sort of a concept that's kind of out there in the milieu. So what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Texas secession. Let's do it, guys. Let's secede.
All right. The subtlety has always been the strength of this podcast.
I have no opinion either way. Totally secede.
I disagree. I disagree completely. So, Texas secession is an interesting concept because it's been out there. It's been out there for a long time, right? This concept of Texas
every few years it comes up. You know when it usually comes up, Nick?
Election years.
No, but who wins usually those elections?
Democrats.
There you go. Yep.
Texas
every freaking
secession
time
comes up when Republicans win too.
Yeah, but it's usually like
because there's always
we don't
an
like
election,
Democrats. We're out.
and you never know who's going to win. And in that sort of ambiguous time when you don't know who's going to win, because Texas secession came up all the time in the 2016 election because everyone thought Hillary was going to win.
Yeah.
Right. It kind of
We're
shut
just gonna
down.
hedge our bets and say we're out. Unless Trump wins, all right, we're back in.
First of all, let me.
So you want to have the national vote until you, and then it doesn't go your way. You're like, never mind, we're out. It's like so you want to have your say until you're like, oh, it didn't go our way.
Yeah,
I'm out.
Let me also dispel a couple of things about, and a lot of Texans believe this, and it's just not true. A couple of things is that we often say, oh, Texas. One of the things that makes Texas different is Texas actually has the right to secede from the Union whenever it wants to. That is not true. We have the same right
when we annexed in, that was kind of one of the little fine print, like, and you will not do this
right
again.
to secede as any other state.
You know, we still have the right to actually break up into 4 different states, though, right?
We do have the right to do that. California has the right to break up into 5 different states.
Well, they can
so
just
we're
break off.
We're not unique in that, but that is something that we can do, is that we can separate into 4 separate states. I would be 100% against that. We could probably talk about that on another podcast, but that really is the only thing that we have that's different from other states. There's also been this talk of, oh, we're one of the only states in the union where we can put our state flag as high as the national flag, as high as the flag of the United States. Also not true. There is nowhere serious.
Let me have it, though, Nick.
There is no serious place in the state of Texas, no governmental place where you will see the Texas flag at the same height as the United States flag.
Well, all right, fine. You know what? But our Capitol building is higher than the U.S. Capitol building. Boom. Texas wins.
That's true.
We literally put a statue on top to make sure, like, we're just going to be a little bit taller.
Yeah, that's also, I'm fairly certain Austin is at a higher altitude than
Stop
Washington,
pointing out
DC.
facts, Nick. No one wants to hear his facts.
There's that. I mean, that's
You're going to get kicked off your own podcast.
and that's fine. We can have these little symbols and stuff like that. First of all, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares,
I care.
right? And also, it isn't true, and you shouldn't say things that aren't necessarily true. And the whole concept of Texas having the quote unquote right to secede is not true. We have the same right to secede as any other state, which is to say, we don't have the right to secede. Secession of Texas will lead to war.
You want to know the trickiest way to kind of do it, though?
What's that?
Every state constitution essentially has to be approved by the United States, according to our constitution, by Congress. And usually it's like, yep, they're good. Check mark, check mark, check mark. Well, if you change it just enough where it wouldn't actually abide by the Constitution, at least like, well, no, you're not recognized. Oh, all right, cool. Then we'll take our things and leave. See you later.
Just take our ball and go home. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could do a fine print situation.
I don't think that'd work out as easily as I just said it would, but it'd be fun to see what happens.
Like the terms of service for Apple when you say, "Oh yeah, do you agree?"
Just not checking that box.
Sure, I agree. Right. It said you could
read
give
all
your,
those 200 pages.
Yeah, it says you could give your kid away. Right. It says that Apple now has the right to, seize all of your property.
That's
and
literally
assets.
why I named my kid Clarence Thomas. It was according to my Apple agreement. It's like, well, you said you're naming the firstborn.
Fair enough, man. Clarence Thomas Metcalf. I cannot wait for baby Metcalf to come. It'll be a lot.
I don't think my wife can wait either. I think she's ready.
I can imagine. I can imagine she's ready.
Her body's gone through a lot. She's done a fantastic job this entire time.
So-
am someone who cannot not drink coffee for that amount of time.
So, James, here's the thing, and this is interesting. It's interesting that we're talking about secession right now because I just had a baby. I have a 7-month-old son who will be, him and your baby. They're gonna have a bond, right? They're gonna be bad boys for life.
My kid's gonna constantly correct your kid just like I do to you because y'all are constantly wrong.
Untrue. My kid's gonna be older and therefore wiser.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, entering into fatherhood has really changed my perspective on this concept of Texas secession, because I was always one of those people that was like, "Yeah, Texas, we should secede and we'd be fine." Blah, blah, blah. I was always that guy, and to a certain degree, I still am that guy. I have a lot of state pride. I am one of these Texas nationalists, right? These people that believe, no, we are still the republic, and I love federalism for that fact, right? Because I live in Texas.
I mean, Lone Star Beer is still a national beer, Texas.
That is very true.
That means great.
I used to be that guy, and then I had a kid, and I looked at my kid, and I was realizing, wow, if Texas were to secede, we could go to war,
Yeah.
and war means I could very well die, and I'd leave this kid alone, and it really brought home to me the things that we talk about on a regular basis, and we love to have these like rah emotional moments. It really brought into me the impact of, wait, what does this actually mean? Well, this means this is going to come with a lot of difficulty. And so you really have to stop and explore and say, if we're going to talk about Texas secession, let's take secession seriously. Right? For the purposes of this podcast, let's take it seriously and let's discuss as if this could happen. We have to talk about what would cause that, right? What would be enough to cause Texas to say, you know what, we're out? Because I am not a pro-secessionist. I love Texas.
You can't just pick any reason. Essentially, like, what's the last straw is what you're meaning.
Yeah. I believe that Texas with the United States is better than Texas without the United States. And a lot of people disagree with me on that. I understand. There's a lot of people that say, well, the United States, leads into this belief or that belief coming in, and we should just kind of consolidate the sort of red state Texas. I disagree. I don't think there's any cultural things at this point that have happened that sort of supersede.
We'd be our own island if it wasn't for Oklahoma.
That's true.
Because the only reason Texas isn't going to the Gulf is Oklahoma sucks.
Yeah.
So we could just depart and just say, you know what, just cut this off and just be our own little thing, be our own little Hawaii. It's a better version.
Well, they say the only good thing to come out of Oklahoma is 35 South. So that's the situation, though, is that there's not enough that's gone wrong. There's not quite enough that's gone wrong with the culture to justify the loss of what we would lose politically and economically without being a part of the United States.
Well, what would we lose, Nick? I mean,
well, that's the question, right? Are you saying what would we lose?
Yeah.
You would lose a massive amount of the gross state product, because a lot of the fact, or it's not the gross national product. Right? I guess it would be, right? It would be if we seceded, but our economy would definitely take a hit, because yes, Texas has a booming economy because it's trading with the rest of the United States. If that stops, you think the economy of Texas is going to stay where it is now? It's going to suffer. It's going to suffer pretty majorly.
Wouldn't it actually, if we did, separate off, wouldn't it actually make it to where now all the states are now a foreign domestic that we have to worry about, like foreign trade?
But you think, here's the deal. If we secede, we go to war. That immediately ceases all trade.
Hey, most of the military is from Texas, and I'm just going to bank on a total assumption that they're going to fight for Texas.
We're not talking. First of all, that is an assumption. Also, secondly, we're not talking about the military. We're talking about trade. Right?
Yeah.
Now, again, this is also the presumption that Texas secedes.
Like a Pokemon trade?
Yes, like a Pokemon trade, except for with actual political and economic ramifications.
If you had a Mewtwo, you have some actual stuff there. That's a heck of a trade.
Ramifications there. Here's the thing. We're assuming, again, that Texas breaks off on its own and secedes by itself.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that if Texas secedes...
I don't think you get all Texas to agree, to be honest.
That's another thing that we have to consider, is the fact that not all Texans are going to be pro, the whole, what do you do about Austin?
We'll just wall up that section. All right, you stay on your side, then we're just going to put a wall over here.
Wall up Austin down to the coast,
right?
Yeah,
put a wall right around Austin.
The
Austin.
thing is, the thing is that, but the what do you do about Austin question is a legitimate question. If we're going to take secession seriously, you have to ask the question, and not necessarily just Austin.
Deport them into America.
There are plenty of people. Yeah, there are plenty of people that you would have to deport into America. I mean, that's the thing. There are plenty of people that
You're not Texan enough. Get out.
The war would not be fought on geographical boundaries the way that necessarily the Civil War was fought.
Yeah.
You would have to. There would be fighting within the borders of Texas, and by the way, that fighting would likely go on for considerably longer than the actual.
You literally would have unionists just in the state of Texas.
For sure. And you'd have to deal with that situation. And
do we get to wear the same cool hats?
The unionist hats?
Yeah,
sure. I don't know. See why not? I'd say we go back to the tri-point. The tri-point. The
on the movie The Patriot. Yeah, kind of hat.
The other thing is you'd have to assume that there would be other states, probably people like Mississippi, Alabama, even though we don't really like them.
Roll Tide.
Alabama, Louisiana, probably states like Wyoming and Montana, who are a bit farther off. They would also probably see Texas's action and follow suit. So Texas seceding would be the beginning of a larger civil war in the United States, right? So you'd be looking at the Boogaloo at that point. And now whether or not the Boogaloo...
Well, I mean, that's been said about for Texas for a lot of things. Like, for instance, Texas laws. There is a lot to be said that once Texas actually kind of changes its law to tweak it one way or the other, because we're so big, it has a ripple effect around us. Because, like, well, if that state's doing it, because we're seen as mostly, even though it's not totally fair, as the most staunch right wing.
Yeah.
Then if they're doing it, well, then we should also follow.
We should follow suit.
So whether that's true or not, Texas does have a ripple effect, even if it's maybe the wrong means of how they get there.
And you can make the case that there would be some trade that was going on between these secessionist states versus the Union, but you would lose connections with places like Ohio, Illinois, New York, California.
But Nick, we already have a Navy. All them bass boats put together, that's enough to be a Navy.
The point is, we're trying to take this seriously, right? The point is, we would lose something. Whether we could recover is a different discussion, but we would definitely lose something.
Oh, we'd also have to coin our own money, Nick. I mean, that's just simply, we can't just start
coin our own money.
I mean, I would, if I'm America, I'm like, whoa, you can't use our dollar. Create your own.
Yeah.
Well, what about our own, stuff? No, you got to coin your own. That's ours. That's our money.
That would have to be something that we'd do, that we would have to have set up before we actually sign the paperwork, which is unlikely.
Do a money buyback?
Yeah, that's entirely unlikely. But here's the thing. In order to suffer that level of loss, we have to ask the question, what
would be the last straw?
What would be an inciting event?
Because that question we asked 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
So I'm going to pitch that question over to you, now that we've rambled on it. I'm going to pitch that question over to you. Inciting event that you think means Texas secedes and we begin. Go.
Well, I think it's something for me is it's simple, to be frank, and it may not be something that people agree with, but it has to go to the national level. And for the national level, if you get rid of the Senate filibuster, I'm out.
The Senate filibuster.
The Senate filibuster. It may not be in the Constitution. It's certainly not something that's written in a document, but it's a long-standing precedent to allow the minority party to have a say, and I think both sides should have a say.
So you realize that could happen. Like the Senate filibuster, now Mitch McConnell recently said that
Cocaine Mitch did a good job.
Said that they don't
kind of
have
held
the votes,
it up.
And I think he's right. I don't think they have the votes to overturn the filibuster. But they could.
Mm-hmm.
That could happen. So you're talking about something that
for me, my logic is if that happens,
breaks the camel's back is something that could happen in the next month.
Right. Well, I mean, I told you I wasn't ambiguous if I wanted to secede or not. For me, if you can do that, you can allow so many things to be pushed through in the Senate, which is a pure majority. And the Constitution itself is actually minority friendly to allow not just the mob, but actually a whole slew of people to agree to a certain thing. That's why amendments aren't allowed to be put in at 51%. You got to have a lot of 3/4, everything for the states. A lot of states have to ratify. A lot of things have to go into process because it shouldn't be that easy.
That is the big issue.
If you get rid of the filibuster, a lot of things can be made easier, and I don't think Texas should be a part of it. That
is the big issue of the last election for the Democrats, for those that are on the Democrat side. They lost a lot of state legislatures in the last election. And that kind of goes under the radar.
But if you can rule from top down, it doesn't matter.
That's true, which is again, I think what they're trying to assemble here. But that is something that went under the radar, right? Is that the farm system for the Republicans is very strong, whereas the Democrats, if they want to do something, they got to do it now, which might lead them to do something drastic like cut the filibuster. And you're saying that Texas secedes. Do you think that the people in Austin share your perspective? Do you think that Texas will secede?
Wait, are you talking about the people who live in Austin, or those who make the decisions in Austin?
I'm talking about the people who would be able to make the decision. Okay, Texas is now severing from the union, so I'm assuming this would have to be done in the Texas Congress in Austin. Do you think that those people would see the filibuster as okay, we're out?
I don't know.
Basically, what I'm saying is,
You have to get them on the record, Nick.
do you think that the filibuster will actually cause a secession?
No, but I think it would start the conversation.
Yeah, I think it could.
I think
certainly
that
cause
would
a
be the biggest conversation. Like, so this is happening.
Yeah.
We can't ignore this anymore. Something's up.
See, for me, I'm a little bit more skeptical of that. I think that not just cutting the filibuster is going to be enough.
You're just a fraidy cat.
I don't think it necessarily should be enough, dude. I don't want to go to war. I don't.
We have the guns, Nick.
I don't want to go to war.
We have the guns.
We don't have all the guns, right? We don't.
We got a lot of them.
We don't. And the United States military, right? So the United States.
You and I
military
both know there's a family member of ours that has a lot of stockpile somewhere.
That is true. And there's nothing to I'm not trying to be against small arms munitions, right? We won. We beat the British with small arms munitions and militia military, right? So I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I'm saying that the United States military is the most powerful fighting force ever assembled in the entire history of humanity.
Correct.
Right? They have predator drones that will be able to kill us before we even say go, right? Before we even know that they're there. The fact is, this will not be an easy thing just because we quote have all the guns. I don't want to go to war. I have a kid, and I don't want to die because and leave my kid leave my kid bereft of a father because of the fact that we took over the filibuster. For me, you have to use that lack of a filibuster to take actionable measures against things that I hold sacred. You're going to have to move against my religion. You're going to have to move against my family, right? So again, I would consider a gun buyback, right? A mandatory, police coming to my house to confiscate my guns.
That would not work in Texas at all.
That to me, no, there's no way. That's not enforceable. But to me, that to me is a threat against my family. There are certain things that I hold sacred, but those are the two big ones, right? If you start telling me I can't go to church, or if you tell me that I don't have the right to defend myself, those are the two big ones. And again,
do you see right as to defend yourself as you actually being able to keep the gun?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure I got the definition correct.
No. I mean, if you come after my guns, or if you another thing that might do it is if you start telling me something like I have to put my kid in public school, right?
Yeah.
That'd be another one where I'd be like, okay, no. So it's not
just
about that.
It's not
just that's true, but it's not just giving yourself the ability to pass these unconscionable things. You actually have to do it in order for me to go to war, right?
Yeah.
Because make no mistake, guys, that is what we're talking about. We're talking about war. Right now, yes, we have all the guns. Yes, a great portion of the military would be on our side. Yes, we would probably not be the only person or the only state seceding, right? So I'm not saying that it can't be done. In fact, I think it very much can be done. But I think if you are talking about a polite divorce between Texas and the rest, it's not going to happen. There's no way.
It's not going to be amicable?
Texas is too valuable. I mean,
yeah.
Really, we are. We've got a great
right. So hold their feet to the fire. Say, hey, we're going to secede unless you do blank.
And that's the other thing.
Okay,
I mean, you want to talk about the pros of secession? If Texas secedes, we're energy independent day one.
Yeah.
We've got
NASA.
We've got so many oil refineries. Yeah, a good chunk of NASA is here. We've got a lot of drills, a lot of places that are drilling going on. There's a lot, so we can achieve energy independence.
No woke.
The United States would also suffer a loss. We would be able to get rid of. But see, that's the thing is, I don't even know if we'd be able to get rid of all the woke people. We'd have to.
That's why we put the fence around Austin.
We would have to purge some of the bigger.
I think the worst word to use. Purge them.
we would have
Golly,
to
you went
we would
so
have to
far immediately.
purge by means of expulsion. Right?
Yeah, you got to define that. You're gonna
Okay.
get killed just saying that.
We would have to ask people politely to leave. We would ask a lot of people politely to leave, because the thing is that even if Texas,
We think your services are better for Oklahoma. Please excuse yourself.
You're not gonna get rid of woke, right? We've got a ton of Democrats in the state of Texas. Right?
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it's interesting when you're talking about a population the size of
We're not saying that's a bad thing either. We're just
Yeah.
commenting as a fact.
when you're talking about a population the size of Texas, the percentages start to get really wonky, right? For example, do you know which state in the union has the most Republicans by raw numbers?
Who?
Which state in the union has the most Republicans?
Who?
What do you think?
By the way, it sounds your question. It sounds like something I wouldn't believe. So the easiest one I wouldn't believe is maybe California.
California. California has the most Republicans by raw numbers. Why? Because California has like 1 billion people. California has tons and tons of people. By the same token, Texas has, by raw numbers, a higher number of Democrats than most states, right? And now by percentage, it's a little different. But when you're talking about population levels, right, I think Texas has more Democrats than Wyoming has people.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately, it really does matter. And so when you talk about this whole idea of secession, you really are not just talking about boundaries anymore. You're talking about people fighting within the boundaries of the state, right? So there's a lot to that. Now, so you seem to be pro-secession, right? You seem to be
Get her done.
get it done. Why? What do you think? What do you think? So talk me out of it. Talk me out of it. Talk me out of my fear
no,
of
because you're too afraid of war. That's a part of the game.
I know it's a part of the game.
If
I'm not afraid of war. You just got to give me something that's worth fighting for.
If in 1776 they were afraid of war, it's like, all right, guys, never mind. Come on, just let us have our own thing. No, they realized you're putting too much crap. It's too much top down. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, there's too many, EPA acronym for what's it called? Administrative agencies making decisions that aren't being able to be voted in and out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's just dial it back and go back to settling our own disputes.
You are way too quick on the reset trigger. The thing is that
we have been letting this happen way too long. It's been a long time to finally pull the trigger.
And it's going to take a long time. So I would rather do the longer work of solving this by political means.
You're putting too much trust in politics.
Doing it by the more it's not trust in politics. It's just taking it back a little bit at a time. We lost it a little bit at a time. Yeah. We're going to need to take it back a little bit at a time. And I would rather do that, which is a longer slog, than say, nope, never mind, just reset, and we all go to war and people die. I'd rather pay in time than in human lives. Does that make sense? Yeah. Unless you start seeing actionable things against my family or my religion.
Okay.
Right?
So that's your guidelines. Okay.
That's your guidelines.
Yours, I guess, may be reasonable.
It is reasonable. I think it's very reasonable, right? It's really easy to get caught up in hysteria is the wrong word, but it's the word that I'm going to use. The hysteria, right? The sort of state patriotism of, yeah, Texas is seceded, and it's fun while we're talking about it. But when the going gets tough and you have to shoot somebody or you have to threaten getting shot, you're going to be singing a different tune. I think we in Texas.
Yeah, the stars at night are big and bright.
Yeah, I get it. Did you just do gunshots?
Yeah, you time your gunshots with the song. Like the Patriots, they had the little drummer boys. They're going along with the war. We'll have little drummer boys with ours.
Oh my goodness. The point is that we in the United States, not just Texas, we in the United States have grown very much. We've become jaded by peace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We are like,
we have it too good.
Fun. Yeah, we have it too good. We don't understand. War is
Here's
hell,
the wrong
man.
thing to say. We need a real controversy.
War is for sure.
Apparently, Rona did not hit hard enough.
And people are like, oh, so we should just go to war and secede. No, you don't.
I don't like you making a very good impression of my wife. That's exactly how she sounds.
That's not how she sounds. Sarah, I am not. That is not how you sound. Sarah, your wife is a wonderful person, and she sounds very feminine. Anyway, the point.
Well, so what I'm hearing, Nick, is that there is some pros and cons, and we should probably go over the pros and cons of what we just kind of discussed. Because it sounds like that you have a good point of why you want to, in realistic fashion. The real story is war will have to go out, so it's not as simple.
Okay.
So the pros and cons from what I kind of got from our little conversation is, one, for the pros, we are the greatest state / country. Two,
Valid.
energy independence, day one, as you said.
Not debating that.
3, very big assumption, but military on our side. Kind of assuming something, but I'll go with it. And 4, we have all the guns.
Those last two are not true.
I've already said it, Nick. I've spoken into existence. It's true.
We have a lot of guns. We do not have all the guns.
Fine, Nick.
And by the way, the presumption that the military would be on our side. A great deal of the military would. I believe it. If the inciting event.
But we're also taking that fact of just most of the population is from Texas. We're assuming they also love to be from Texas.
That's true. And I will tell you, if the inciting event is strong enough, you're going to get more of the military on your side. I can see more of the military being on our side if the government starts going after God and guns than if the government just decides to kill the filibuster. Right, because you're going to have you also want
to hit all 3 G's.
Yeah,
we're definitely out. God, gold, and guns. I'm out of here. Right?
So the thing is that if the inciting event is strong enough, then you've got more of a chance of winning.
Yeah.
Then the cons.
Let's go. The cons.
The cons are war is hell.
War sucks.
The fact is the war. We have to think about what we're talking about when we talk about secession, and I want to take it seriously, right? Let's do it. But if you're going to take it seriously, you have to factor that in.
Also, another con. Austin.
Yeah, what do you do about Austin, right? And
I'm just going to leave that there.
That expands to the rest of the fact that we've got tons of Democrats in this state that we wouldn't know what to do with.
3, we would have to coin our own money, and we're assuming that's actually a simple thing to do, and to have our own version of the Fed just for the state of Texas.
Go back to just trading cattle. We could do that.
Whatever.
I have this cup of oil.
For starting government from scratch, essentially, because we'd have to restart a lot of this. We can't just continue on, as you said, with trade and everything else.
Yeah.
Would have to restart.
And there is somewhat of a structure that we could build off of, right? So it's not like we'd be starting from bare bones. But yes, definitely power vacuum is something that you're going to have to deal with.
What was it? Almost on 4, so 5. There's constitution complications. Would we change our constitution to reflect us being our own independent?
We would have to write a new constitution.
Yeah. 6.
The Texas Constitution is over 300 pages long.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous number of
leaves
pages
no room for error.
Anyway, go ahead. 6.
6. National unity is good, whatever that's supposed to mean.
The United States. So Texas with the United States is better than Texas without the United States, I believe. At least initially. Could Texas grow to be something better? Certainly, I think it does have that potential. But right now, we are better off with the United States.
Everyone pray for Nick. And the last one, foreign policy. Because as we mentioned earlier, every state that's not Texas would become now a foreign country to us, considering.
Yeah.
Which kind of complicates a few things. We'll just figure that out as we go.
Honestly,
I like to learn as we go.
So pros and cons listed. Are you still pro secession?
I still think I have my reasons to secede, but maybe not now. But we'll get there.
I think that if we get there, then sure. I would be totally for the United States looking something more like the European Union.
Oh, get out!
I know we don't like the European Union, but it's the European part that I don't like. I think that their union is actually good, and here's why. Here's the reason why. Brexit.
How long did that take?
It took a long time, but
and it's still not fully in place.
England peacefully severed. Right, they were able to sever from the European Union without war. That cannot happen under a federal system.
It was a bank.
What do you
it's
mean
a bank. The Brexit involves them monitoring their money from a bank perspective. That's how long it took for a freaking bank. You really think it's that simple? They couldn't even. They voted it in. They said, "Well, we'll do it again." It voted this way. All right, one more time for good measure.
This might be the first bloodless secession in history. Is Brexit?
Maybe.
It might be the first bloodless secession in history. And you know what? It happened fully politically, and England more or less got what they wanted, and everybody's okay.
Whatever.
Right? Everything's fine.
Whatever. That's secession.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't have an issue with that. Now, I don't like the European part of it, but the European Union will look a little bit better. All right? So that's segment number 1, guys. That's
our secession talk.
That's our secession talk.
Obviously, we totally agree.
Yep. Time to move into our next situation. We were talking about Texas. Let's talk about the changes in the country with our 3 hot takes. All right, so we are going to cover 3 hot topics moving forward. We're going to narrow it in, talk about things that are actually happening in the news, things that are going to affect you on a daily basis as a Texan. James, topic the first.
Biden, and from a Texas perspective.
Topic the second.
Rona in Texas.
Also from the Texas perspective. Topic the third.
What is Texas debating in the Texas session?
Ooh, that's a hot take. That's hot.
Woo!
That's hot. That's going down. All right. So, moving into topic numero uno.
Biden.
Joe Biden. What do we think about Joe Biden as a Texan? From a Texas perspective, how should we take this new president? And yes,
He is our president.
He is the president.
Even though Texas did not vote for him, he is our president.
He is the president, right? How should we take this new president?
I honestly don't know. I don't want to take the staunch
I know.
Republican view, but it's not. He's not making it too easy. I mean, let's just do this, Nick. Let's just say this first thing. If Trump would have done this many executive orders in week 1, people would have lost it.
Impeachment day 1, yeah. That would have been.
And he deservedly would get it.
Day 1 impeachment for sure.
Today, I looked this up last night. According to ABC's news, over 30 executive orders have been written by Joe Biden in the first week.
Yeah, CNN's reporting.
And they're not even done with the first week.
CNN's reporting the same thing, yeah. We're not even done with the first week, and we've got 30. Now, compare that to the last, 5, 10 president, any president. No president's
All right, I'll just pick a magic thing. We'll start from HW, because that is actually kind of in the new era of how politics has changed.
Okay.
With HW, he had 1 in the first week. With Clinton, a very progressive president for a lot of things, he had 2. For W. Bush, he had bagel, 0.
Yeah, 0.
For Obama, some would say kind of far-reaching, he had 5. For Orange Man Bad Trump,
Donald Trump,
he had 4.
And now we've got
Biden
30.
is currently, as I saw this morning, signing some more in today.
Yeah.
And what's today's date, Nick? The 28th, just outside of the first week.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, guys. I mean, and this is from Texans. Even we talk about Texans, red state Republicans. I understand there's some Democrats, there's some libertarians. Most libertarians and Democrats most libertarians in Texas are just Democrats.
Yeah.
That don't want to seem too scandalous about it, which is fine. I don't begrudge you that. But the fact is, we do have a diverse group of people from a political perspective in Texas. And I'm going to go ahead and reach out here and grab my magical coffee mug.
Came out of nowhere.
Thank you,
I don't know how
magical
that
coffee
happened.
mug. Look at that, right? We do have a diverse group of people, but Texans should be about federalism.
Yeah.
Texans should not be about the enforcement of the national
Top-down
level government. Yeah,
because he's essentially running over the whole gambit from the legislative. He's not letting them do it. Mm-hmm. He has the numbers.
Yep.
He has the Senate. That was a huge thing about Georgia. He has essentially 51, counting Kamala Harris as the tying vote breaker or tiebreaker. And then he has a majority in the Congress. He has the votes. He could probably easily pass most of these things. Yet he's not doing it. I wonder why.
And let me be clear. Democrat friends out there, and you are my friends, right? You're a Texan, means you're my friend.
Correct.
Right? The thing is,
Texan first, politics second.
Even as a Democrat, you should not like what Joe Biden is doing with passing this many executive orders and setting that precedent. The one great thing about Texas is because we're such a highly populous state, we have one of the more powerful and more mobile, I guess we should say, easy to execute and effectuate its power. State governments in the entire United States.
Yeah.
Right? We have a very powerful state government, which we temper by having it only pass once every 2 years.
Correct.
They only meet once every 2 years. But we have a very powerful state government. And it gives us the ability to fight back against things that we don't necessarily like from the national level. Now, even if you're a Democrat and you think, oh, well, Biden's a Democrat, so I'm okay with it. Understand, somebody is going to come into office that you might not be okay with.
And you're giving him this much power. You're setting a huge precedent.
And you're going to want
if you were fine with it then, you got to be fine with it whenever Orange Man Bad or whoever's next comes up again, if he even wins.
You're going to want to make sure that you've got that buffer, right? The buffer of the state, the buffer of the federal system, meaning that the states and the states can potentially override the national government. You want to keep that. You want to maintain that, especially in a state like Texas. And for right now, for Joe Biden doing what he's doing, that's really hurting us there. And so,
but Nick, what is he just overturning Trump executive orders?
No, he's not. It's only a third.
Because
right?
that would be, if I'm a Democrat, that would be my argument. Is like, he's just overturning the unnecessary executive orders that Trump did.
Even if that were the case, he'd only have done 10 of them. Only 10 of these executive orders are actually repealing things that Trump did.
So he's saying at least 20, which
least
again
20.
is over 30. So at least 20 of them.
It's quadruple what Obama did.
Yep.
It's four times what Obama did, and so that's not a good thing. I mean, just from a perspective of somebody who values the ability for state to serve as a buffer between you and the federal government, that's not a good thing, regardless of who you are. Now, as far as what these executive orders pass by President Biden, and I just got to do a little aside here. As Texans, and I understand that Ted Cruz is our senator, and he was part of the whole contesting the election, or at least getting the point out there. We've got to separate from that narrative. We can't be that. If we're going to make changes happen as Texans, we're going to have to make it from within the United States, and that starts with accepting the results of the election.
Yeah.
And so,
May not like it. It is what it is.
yeah, it is what it is. If you don't like it, vote more.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the situation, and we have to make sure that we understand that as Texans. But
Nick, I'm going to pick on our current president, though. Is that okay?
that's fine.
All right.
I always pick on the president, man.
All right.
That's what he's there
one
for.
of the most notable ones that he signed, I believe, day one for executive order was to wear masks on federal property. Do you want to guess what happened that evening, Nick?
Is it that he wasn't wearing a mask?
He
on
wasn't
federal
wearing
property?
a mask at the Lincoln Memorial. Oh my gosh!
Are you
It's
supposed
almost-
to wear? Are you supposed to wear 2 masks now? I thought the new thing
Oh
was 2
yeah,
masks.
2 masks with a donut as well. You actually just essentially wrap your head in cellophane. You should be totally fine.
2022, 27 masks according to the CDC.
You get it to where let's let that old style where you'd wear like 2 or 3, like those trendy people would wear 2 or 3 polos and have some of their pop collars, so you can like have like little colors.
Yep.
You have the different colors to go with it, so you can have like a little rainbow going.
We're also
and
going to
have
be wearing diver helmets. That's going to be the future. Just those big old,
just the
school,
old
the
brass,
old school
yeah, the
diver
old
helmets,
brass
yeah.
ones, yeah.
The other thing that's important to note about is that a lot of this, we're talking about masks on federal property. There's a lot of stuff that affects Texas too, though.
Yeah.
As far as what he's passing, what's he talking about? Because there's been several things about immigration.
Well, he did put that immigration, the deportation ban, essentially stopping deportations for the first 100 days until we reassess whatever that means.
Oh my God, that's so
But-
stupid.
Notably, according to the Washington Post, the Texas courts have already pushed back on that. A federal judge from Texas has already issued a 14-day nationwide injunction to stop the deportations because he says, essentially, we need to let it happen. The lawsuit's claiming that the admin would be violating an agreement that it already kind of has with the United States with the Department of Homeland Security that typically has required 180 days notice before you actually implement or consultation, stuff along those lines. And that was typically the actual, the last administration actually followed that. So if you hate Orange Man bad, he actually went through the final steps to do it. That is the reason why he couldn't just get rid of DACA, because he did not go to the true steps. That's according to Supreme Court.
Yep.
So Texas is already saying,
he lacked standing.
nope.
Is that what you're saying?
He lacks standing.
Here's the thing, though, and this is another thing that we have to talk about. And I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, Biden secretly has dementia and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not gonna push that narrative. But here's the thing.
It's such a cheesy narrative.
It's fairly evident by the fact that 30 executive orders were signed. That's 10 a day. It's fairly evident to me that Biden is not necessarily in control of this process, because you don't sign 10 executive orders a day for the first basically 3 to 4 days of your presidency, right? The first week of your presidency, you sign 30 executive orders. You don't do it at that rate if you're carefully thinking about each one.
No, you're saying yes to whoever's willing to give
People
it to
are
you.
just bringing this. I mean, to me, this says.
I mean, he signed the mask one and then didn't fulfill it, so obviously he didn't think of a huge passion for it.
To me, this says that people are just bringing this to Mr. Biden and says, this needs your signature, Mr. President. And he's just, oh, okay. Right. So whether
he's
or not,
right-handed.
I don't think, well, I don't find it's fine. He's left-handed because left-handed people.
Just
are
saying,
less.
fact check, Nick.
The fact is that Biden, as the president, you've got to think about the things that are coming across your desk. And to me, this indicates that Biden basically just has kind of his handlers coming up and putting it on his desk saying, sign this. And he's like, oh, I guess I will. But you don't sign that many executive orders in such a short amount of time if you're carefully thinking about each one.
Yeah.
even if they were, which they're not, even if they were all just overturning things that Trump had done, it's just clear to me that this is not that this is something.
If it's that obvious that we need to overturn it, then again, he has both powers for the both houses. He could simply get it passed, but that's obviously not his goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scary part. And again, he could be actually someone who's actually a decent president down the line, but it just scares me from the get-go is that in the first week he has 30 executive orders.
Yeah, and I mean, again,
if Orange Man did this, holy bejeez, this would be a whole ruckus.
This would be a whole ruckus. And the thing is that talking about things like, and I'm sorry, and this is going to sound really, but Joe Biden, you're from Delaware, you're from Pennsylvania.
Is he?
Is he? The
Nick?
point is, he's not from a border state.
No,
he's not from a southern border state.
He is from Delaware, but how long has he lived in Delaware?
And
dude's been in the government since age 30. He actually had to wait to be sworn in because he was not 30 yet when he got elected.
He's from that region of the country, right?
Yeah.
And I understand you're the president of the entire United States.
Yes,
I
you
get
are.
that, right? But the fact is that, and for those of you out there who are not from a border state, right, who have never lived in a southern border state and had to kind of realize what looser immigration means to the economy of your state, to the crime rates in your state, and things like that. Those sorts of things have to be considered. And this is one of the reasons why I like federalism. This is one of the reasons why I like the ability for states to kind of maintain their own sovereignty when it comes to this level. I would be perfectly fine if there were no mandates on immigration from a national level.
Well, to be fair, Nick, on that one, for constitutional wise, the government has to be able to speak with one voice, and so a state can't override what the national says.
You're right. I recant.
No, I'm not saying it's not something that should be looked at. I'm just saying it's a tougher situation. It sounds easy until you realize that the nation does have to speak with one voice in order for our United States, as you said, was apparently good in their last segment, to maintain its sovereignty.
It's good. Yeah, no, I recant. That was I disavow. That was just me speaking too quickly. I really do think that there does need to be some national policy as far as borders are concerned, but we should tend towards maintaining the sovereignty of our borders. And Biden has clearly. I mean, how many of those were about immigration? It was easily.
I think
on
the first day it was like 5 or immigration.
Yeah, it was usually 5 or 6.
He wrote 17, by the way, in the first day.
He's also canceling the Keystone Pipeline for those of you who work in oil in Texas. That's a big deal.
Sorry, bros.
Sorry, guys. He's pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords.
He's
getting back into the Paris. That's fun, right? That's gonna be.
It's all show.
That's gonna be so much
it's
fun. We're gonna get to go back to the Paris Climate Accords.
What's fun for the teeth of the Climate Accord, and what that means is like if you go against what they've agreed to in this Climate Accord, according to the UN Assistant Secretary General on Climate Change, whose name is Janos Pastazor. I can't pronounce that correctly. I just butchered it, and I apologize.
Janos is the name of a character from One Punch Man.
Whatever. He has stated there will only be a name and shame system, which
ring a bell?
Or name and encourage plan, as he's called it, which is essentially saying, as the agreement provides no consequence if countries do not meet their commitments, consensus of this kind is fragile.
So this is just a convention. It's like going to a convention.
He actually admitted a trickle of nations exiting the agreement could trigger the withdrawal of more governments, bringing about a total collapse of the agreement. There's literally no teeth.
Who cares? Who cares? It's just a piece of paper that
and the countries that are in it haven't really abided by the rules. None of them.
The most compliant at this point, the most compliant in the first world country in the Paris Climate Accords is the United States.
Yeah,
we just pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords.
Yeah, we actually did the lowest emissions, I think, in 2017 and 2018.
The highest emission reduction.
Decrease. Yeah, it was still high, but yeah.
Yeah, so China's not compliant. They're still in. The EU is certainly not compliant. They're still in. India's supposedly compliant.
Yeah, according to the site, India's compliant. I'm like, okay.
I doubt. Right?
But here's another fun one that's just for show. You ready for it, Nick?
Go for it.
You need to wear a mask on public modes of transportation, as if that wasn't already happening.
A thing. Well, the thing is that
because you need to have that top-down government, Nick.
You need to wear a mask in state to state, or when you travel across state lines. Does that mean that we're gonna have like highway patrols at state borders, looking at instead of holding up the speedometer, they're just checking for masks?
It's the new seatbelt law. You wearing it?
Yeah, it's like those cops that sit there at HOV lanes right?
Yeah.
So
They're just waiting for you to do it.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, HOV is a. Do they have that in every state? I think or is that just
Probably.
a Texas thing? HOV, high occupancy vehicle. So if you've got more than one person in the car, you can travel in the
It's
HOV
for
lane.
carpooling, essentially.
For carpooling, yeah, and it gives you faster travel time. But they have cops that are sitting in the HOV lanes just watching to make sure that people are have more than one person in the car. There's actually been people who have been pulled over because they've put store mannequins in seats so that they can do that. We're gonna have that at the state lines, just because we have to have a cop there watching to make sure.
That
Hey,
matters now.
if you're gonna cross from Texas and Oklahoma, you better be wearing masks, son.
Yeah, we have thefts and stuff going on, but right now we got to make sure this HOV lane stays sovereign.
So, and we'll talk about that when we get to Rona. That's another topic. Speaking of which, how are we doing on time? Do we need to go to the next topic?
I think we should. Yeah, we should probably move on.
All right.
Let's go to the next one. Rona.
Let's go on to topic second. Topic number 2. Rona in Texas. How should coronavirus?
China virus.
How should the China virus? Right?
It is from China.
The Chinese.
That is not
it
actually
is the Chinese
racist.
coronavirus. It's the Wuhan coronavirus, right? You don't got to be silly by calling it the Wu flu, even though that is really funny.
Kung flu. I heard that one.
The chop flu-y. But it does come from China, right? And that's why and I'm sorry, it's a fact, right? It came from China. Anyway, how should we feel? How should we Texans process the coronavirus? First of all, how have we dealt with the coronavirus?
Well, most of our Rona laws have come from executive order from our governor, which I think, according to this date, I could be wrong, the whole time that our Governor Abbott has been in there, he's written 32 executive orders. Because for executive order in Texas, it typically has the initials of the governor and then a number. And he has, I think the last one I picked up on was GA, Greg Abbott, 32.
So how long has Abbott served? Like 8 years almost?
Yeah.
He served for quite a while, and he's only
never
done 32.
He's never fiddled with us. He's like, no, you do your own thing.
I really hope that, and you know that it will, right? You know that Biden is not going to sign, continue at this pace throughout. But yeah, it is.
It's easy to pick on right now. That's why I said we're picking on.
It is shocking that we did 30 in the first couple of days of the Biden presidency, and we've done 32 in the total of the Abbott's governorship. Yeah, so he put in some executive orders pertaining to coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. The most recent one was this is according to the Texas Department of State Health Services, their site, was on October 8th, and that's what essentially he was opening Texas more open, and I think it said limited to about 50% for sport gatherings, which again makes sense. You're trying to drink beer and yelling, I get it. 75% for churches, and unless you fall into these exceptions, it's essentially like 75% was like the top tier, but 100% can happen in these weird exceptions, which I don't really understand, but fine. Amusement parks, water parks, swimming pools, pretty much anything to do with swimming, museums, libraries, zoos, aquariums, natural caverns, and so similar facilities.
The man-made caverns are still closed?
Yes, because they possess Rona.
Whatever. I think that's because, there are a lot of those things, and they generate a lot of revenue for a lot of places.
Yeah.
Right? I can think right now we're very close to Arlington, Texas, which, by the way, Texas is a huge state, right? So you meet somebody from El Paso, it's entirely likely that people in El Paso...
You can drive 12 hours and still be in the state of Texas.
Yeah. People that say, I live in El Paso, Texas. Like, have you ever been to Arlington? A good chance the answer is no.
No, that's too far.
But, we're really close to Arlington, and we're about 4 hours from Houston at this point in Austin. Sports, theme parks... zoos, those are big in Texas, right? They got a really nice zoo down in Austin, and they have a really nice zoo in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And so
San Antonio has a pretty good size one.
San Antonio's got a nice zoo. Theme parks, Six Flags. This is where Six Flags are. This is the OG Six Flags, guys. I want you to understand. Those of you guys who are up there in Ohio or wherever the heck the other Six Flags are. The OG Six Flags is right here in the state. Six Flags Over Texas is the first Six Flags.
There's kind of a reason why it says Over Texas.
Yep.
Because there was actually Six Flags over our great country.
So that is something that started here. It's arguably one of the more popular theme parks in the United States. There's also massive sporting arenas in Arlington. You've got
Jerry World right there in Arlington.
You got Jerry World. You got the new Globe Life. Is it Globe Life Field? It's Globe Life Field now. It's not Globe Life Park, which is dumb. But you've got that going on there.
Hashtag bring it back to ballpark in Arlington.
You've got that's very true. You've got Hurricane Harbor. Used to be called Wet and Wild, if you remember that.
Yeah, it's wet. It's on Wet and Wild Way. They didn't bother changing the name of that.
Yep, it used to be called Wet and Wild, and then it got bought by Six Flags, and now it's Hurricane Harbor, right? So you've got all of these really big things that are happening there, and a lot of that brings in a lot of revenue for the local places in Texas. So it does make sense that they would lift a lot of the restrictions on things like that.
Yeah.
As well, by the way, they should. It is long
You're
past
outside.
time. It is long past time. We should have been opening up. We should have been opening up the country last June. I mean, to be perfectly
But to be
honest.
fair, we're also putting a 2020 hindsight on everything because we had no idea what the heck's going on, and that's why he's eliminated some of his executive orders that he has put in for Greg Abbott. He's like, hey, for the beginning, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then he repealed it maybe a few months later.
And that's
like,
what I'm
hey,
saying,
our
guys.
bad, but we had to stop somewhere and assert what's going on. And then he said, never mind.
You know, we're talking about how Texans should feel about coronavirus.
Ugh.
One thing that I should say that has made very clear to me, coronavirus, is that you should be very happy to be a Texan.
Yes.
You
Oh
should
my
be
gosh.
very
yes.
happy for federalism, right? Because
Texas
you
has
could-
not bothered you that much.
You could be in California. I actually had this. So I also have a training business that I work in, and I do my own thing, and I teach classes. I used to travel all over the country, but then Rona happened, and so now I'm teaching mostly online. And I'm teaching online with co-trainers, right? So we're kind of doing back and forth, and I'm teaching things. And they'll usually kind of tap in and all that sort of stuff. But really, the big situation here is that I'm working with people from places like Colorado. I work with a guy who's from Australia. I teach classes in London. So I teach all over the place, and I talk to people from all over the place. And I have this client that's based out of New York, and I teach with a lot of guys that are based out of New York. And I remember talking with them online, and they're like, yeah, coronavirus this is the new normal, man. Haven't been to a restaurant in months, and I think it's always going to change the way that
I've
we
been
live
to a
and all
movie
this
theater
stuff.
the past few
and
months.
I sat there and I just started chuckling, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Guys, I wear a mask occasionally when I go to the store.
It's a farce.
Other than that, my life has not changed that much." And I think part of that is because I'm from Texas, and I don't realize how much the rest of the world is still in this sort of.
Oh yeah.
They're just kind of seized up, and they're still living in.
They're
this
afraid
fear.
of life.
Texans,
Life's gonna hit.
We got it good, man. We're doing great. And by the way, our death rate, we're in the middle of the pack as far as death rate's concerned.
Yeah.
Our death rate is not spiked. We're not as low. Our death rate's not as low as Florida's is. But
Who's opened up a lot more.
Who's opened up a lot more, right? But
DeSantis is the whipping boy for all of them, though.
I love me some DeSantis. He needs to move to Texas. The point,
I do not envy being him. He has to take a lot of crap.
for sure. The point here is that there's not a lot of evidence suggesting that lockdowns did all that much good, because you're still getting. I mean, Los Angeles.
I mean, the
and New York
CDC
and
is even
places
saying
like that.
well, that's probably not the best mode to go.
And so the
You're
fact
gonna
that
listen
we're
to the experts. There's your expert.
So the fact that we're in Texas, and the fact that we were able to take that risk and it paid off, but also the fact that we were able to kind of read into things and realize that, listen, we're going to have to continue living our lives. The fact that states like Texas made that decision early is what's keeping, and we're going to talk about this when we get to the budget, is what's keeping a lot of these states afloat, which as a result is kind of keeping the United States afloat to a certain
Yeah,
degree.
but Nick, Abbott needs to repeal some of these executive orders. I mean, there's literally one that put on July 2nd, GA 29, mask mandate in public spaces with 20 or more positive COVID cases. You have to essentially wear a mask in public places. Literally everybody. That was essentially the way it's like. I didn't want to say everybody, but everybody.
Everybody's got it. Yeah.
Like, it's just BS. If masks work, which I've been told they do, masks work.
well, two masks.
Apparently now two masks.
Two masks work.
If they're so definitively working, how about you wear it if you're that afraid, and don't worry about the rest of us, because I'm not there. Because even the CDC said originally, well, no, it's not to protect. It's not to protect you. It protects others from you. Well, then they came out a few months later. Actually, it does protect you. So if you're listening to the experts again, Nick, the mask apparently works. So it doesn't matter if you want to wear one because you feel safer. That's fantastic, because that's what your American right allows you to do. But I shouldn't have to wear a simple diaper over my face every time I want to go in some public place.
Here's the thing, guys. The big thing is just act like adults, right? And I really feel like even if
What's that mean now?
even
Sadly?
even if Texas were to simply say, even if Abbott were to simply say, hey, we're going to lift the mask mandate,
Repeal Executive Order 29.
businesses would still probably require masks for a while. people would probably still wear masks for a while. But you just got to treat
fine.
you got to treat the people in your state like they're grown-ups. I mean, that's
Let the person
fact.
decide. Don't mandate it.
You don't need to mandate you must wear a mask. It's just mandating compliance to that level is frustrating.
Well, my thing is they haven't really put a lot of things like they can say, well, the science. Well, definitively say which study you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we continue to get studies coming out and out, and it's like, okay, does this back up what you were saying?
Yeah.
Well, no, but that one does. Okay, you can't keep cherry picking facts.
Yeah, and you can't say the science as if the science is some
Was
being
there is that like the new
right,
Bible? The
that
science
lives on Olympus and dictates to us from on high.
we know better than thou.
Yeah. But I mean, I talked with somebody that I said, man, I'll do anything. I just want to go back to normal. If you need me to wear a mask so we can go back to normal, then I'll wear a mask. If you want me to wear a purple party hat so that we can go back to normal, I'll wear a purple party hat. And I'm like, first of all, that is like unbelievable levels of sheep compliance.
Yes.
Right. Second of all,
Please, Mr. Government, let me do things.
yeah. And second of all, it's like, you can just go live your life, right? It's like why are we having to be told, okay, now it's the epitome of ransom.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, well, if you guys want, I mean, my parents used to do that to me when I was a child. If you want to have dessert, you better eat your peas. Sorry.
Guess
I'm grown
what?
up.
I never had dessert.
I'm a grown up.
I never ate those veggies.
You never ate those. But the thing is like, you're literally ransoming my country because you want me to wear a mask.
Just because you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, but whatever.
And
Let's move on to the next one, Nick.
We can talk.
We can talk forever on
we
that
can talk
one.
forever about
Just
that one.
repeal it. If Abbott, somehow you're listening, repeal it. GA 26, which has not yet been repealed, at least I haven't seen it explicitly, still allows judges to impose harsher restrictions for gatherings of over 100 people. Why is this still here?
That's retarded.
You're legislating from the bench again, and that is why Dallas's judge has become a huge vocal point. Don't get me wrong. Dude is very good at what he does, and he's very good at the public speaking, but you're also not the mayor. Why am I listening to you?
Yeah. You were not
He's
elected.
a very good judge, but you're not the mayor.
He was elected because he's in Texas.
Yeah,
So
but he's elected, but still, you're not the mayor. Why are you making decisions?
You're not the mayor. You're not a legislator. What you can't.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what to do.
But I mean, if Dallas wants to vote him in, that's your prerogative.
But I mean, here's the thing, guys. If you think masks work, and you live in Texas, and Texans can do this to a certain extent, go to a restaurant and tell me masks work. Right now, if you want to
go in. You sit down.
You have a mask. You sit down. You take the mask off
because there's a magic barrier, Nick, around the table.
We
It's
were
like at the cigar shop.
We were at a cigar shop the other day. We were sitting down, and literally nobody in the cigar shop was wearing masks because everyone was seated, right? So nobody was wearing a mask.
You can smoke cigars inside, Nick, but you better be wearing a mask if you're walking around.
Gracious, and it's one of those things.
There's literally a seat within 6 feet of entering the store that you can sit down in that you're automatically safe from the mask. But if you're standing 6 feet over here, and
if it's bad enough that we need to be wearing masks all the time, then just close the restaurants.
Yeah.
If it's that bad, then we need to talk about closing the restaurants.
Correct.
But we don't because it ain't that bad. Anyway.
Correct. All right, let's go to our last topic here.
Topic number 3.
3. What is Texas debating during the current session? According to Texas Tribune, there are 3 clear priorities that have emerged on this agenda for this session. Which, by the way, is the session should have happened last year. But, as we all know, Rona hit, so it was moved to be from January to May of this year. Mm-hmm. And so that's the whole reason. So that's why we're having an off year. That we're actually in session, if those of you keeping up. Yep. The 3 priorities are the budget, redistricting, and, of course, the pandemic.
Yeah, we just talked about the pandemic.
We just talked about it. I think we've pretty much beat that dead horse.
Well,
everybody knows how we feel.
I still
totally agree with everything.
I still want to swing. What do we want to talk? So let's talk about the budget for just a hot second.
Oh, the budget.
How's the budget look?
The budget's actually not that bad. Rona hit, obviously, but according to the comptroller, Glenn Hagar, our official, and according to he actually has stated that we have actually lost $1 billion according to Rona.
Yes.
So overall, we got hit hard, yet in the grand scheme of things, we only lost $1 billion.
$1 billion is like 1/100 of the budget, though, because isn't the Texas budget over $100 billion?
It's a pretty large budget.
Yeah,
and it's over about 112, 13-ish $1 billion.
I would be really curious to see how much net loss there was in states like New York and California.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not our state.
I bet you it's a third.
Yeah.
I bet you it's at least.
But according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're actually bouncing back as well because the unemployment in May of 2019 was at a record low of 3.4%. Once we had the statewide lockdown, it was over 13%. And now, according to December, which is the latest latest stat we have, which could be lower than this, we're currently at 7.4. So we're ticking down pretty quickly back from the 13%. Because, I mean, the state shutdown was in the middle of summer, and by December we're about half that.
You moved about half.
So I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, I think we're actually getting back to it, saying, hey, let's figure out a way to go around this.
Again, I think a big part of this is we stayed open, or we didn't stay open, but we didn't shut down for as long.
There was very few months where we can only get it to go only from restaurants.
Yeah, and we're opening restaurants. I mean, I work in real estate. We're still doing open houses in the state of Texas. People are still buying and doing showings. Retail is in large part open. You can watch, when the Cowboys were playing, which they are not playing anymore because they suck. But there were people in the stands at the games.
Yeah.
There are people in the stands at college games in Texas. So our economy has been allowed to more or less recover because of the fact that we've taken down these mandates. And again, I want.
I mean, didn't one of the playoff games for the college playoffs was in Jerry World?
Yep.
Because they couldn't hold it in the actual Rose Bowl because California the rules, like Texas is going, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
We'll take it. Bring your money here.
Yeah. Jerry's like, oh, come on, spend that money.
I think Texans are kind of jaded by that because we just think this is how the rest of the country is, and it isn't. That's not the way. I mean,
it's because our country is the only one that matters.
California, New York are totally shut down. Now, I went to Wyoming. I don't think Wyoming ever shut down.
Yeah.
I don't think Wyoming ever had a mask mandate. It was just,
Well, I've visited back home in East Texas, and my wife and I were the weird ones who were wearing the mask in public, and I was like, oh, no one else cares? Okay, good. See you later.
Silly. So the question now is, okay, now that we have a smaller budget, does that mean we're going to make government cuts? Please say yes.
Maybe. Because there's been arguments that have been made, Nick, to touch that Texas Rainy Day Fund that we have there. If you don't know, the Rainy Day Fund came into existence as a result from the oil crash in the 80s. And Texas said, well, when crap hits the fan again, we're going to be prepared. Some have said, well, this is the crap hitting again.
Yeah.
And they want to touch it. I don't think it's, in my opinion, a good time because we've just explained it's about 112 to 113 billion of budget. We're down $1 billion. So if we even take the 12 billion out and just leave it to 100 billion, that's 1%. 1% is not enough to hit to even touch that rainy day fund, which only has about 13-ish billion in it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be touching it. There's other functions.
There's got to be at
just
least
cut stupid spending.
Yeah, there's got to be at least $1 billion spending that you can find.
Act like an adult. Solve your own problems. Have a great day.
That's so true.
That'd be the perfect speech from Governor Abbott.
The other thing is that it's so shocking to me how many states do not have that rainy day fund, right?
Yeah.
It seems like you should just be able to save, right? That can't be that hard. But yeah, a lot of states don't have it. A lot of states aren't working with it. But yeah, I don't think we should touch that. Let's really quickly move on to the next thing that's being discussed besides Rona, which is the redistricting, right?
Redistricting, yep, because it's a year that ends with a zero, which means a census, which means a redistrict fund.
This is another thing that's interesting is that Joe Biden, one of his executive orders was to include non-citizens in the census.
Yeah.
Which is...
You're essentially allowing people who can't vote be a portion for the vote. That's not right.
Yeah. That's not okay.
It's kind of back to that 3/5 compromise thing, which the whole reason why they did it is so that the South could not count slaves that could not vote in order to get more votes in the Congress. It's seen as a bad thing, and it was, but it also was to curb the South's reign over forcing a lot of slave laws in.
Yep.
Just a little fun little history fact there. The redistricting, I mean, it's a lot of debates going to have to go back and forth. Nothing's really decided at this moment. It's still up in the air of what they're going to do. Essentially, what I've gotten from the Texas Tribune is that it's going to be a lot of harsh words back and forth, which is fun. But the weirdest thing that has come about is that Texas has changed its rules again. The Texas Senate rules just changed from a supermajority of 19 senators that would have to vote as a yes to bring something to the floor to now 16 senators. Funny enough, they did it with only 18 votes. The reason is because the Republicans no longer have the supermajority. And no. This should not be happening. This is advantageous. I get it. But essentially, stuff could go wrong. And you're leaving it up to, again, that 51% to make the majority of votes. And that's not a good thing.
Republicans, don't be stupid. This is stupid.
You're literally you're
doing
baiting. You're riding the Democrats' platform so easily.
You're doing
what
the
you're saying is,
same
hey guys,
thing.
elect me, and I'm that one vote. We can vastly change Texas because you've shortened it down so much. It originally was 21, and then they went to 20 senators for Republicans, and so they lowered it to 19. And now we're down to 18, so they lowered it to 16. Yeah. You're literally just like tic-tacking to where it's like, so 51%?
We talked about this a second ago, right? The reason why it's not good for you to support Joe Biden and his 30 EOs, right? 30 executive orders, is because somebody someday will come along that is not that in your favor, and they will abuse that to
and I don't blame them. You left me open. Sure. You left me in open.
And if you're going to do this, Republicans, if you're going to say, okay, we need to shrink the amount of votes to get something on the floor, if by some chance Democrats end up winning more elections, which has happened, it happened in 2018.
That's why they're having to shorten it down.
That's why they're having to shorten it down. So if you lose more seats, now that comes back to bite you in the butt, right? To quote Mitch McConnell, you will regret this sooner than you think.
Did they.
They did. And we're doing the same thing. So don't be dumb. Don't be stupid and say, okay, here's the deal. You're going to need to probably do some wheeling and dealing at this point. But if you want to get to the point where
that's
you have
the point of politics, is to wheel and deal and actually cross the aisle every now and then.
If you want to get the point where you're back to the supermajority, which, by the way, you were on your way to doing. We actually did really well. We, the Republicans, and I'm not necessarily always identifying as a Republican, but Republicans in Texas did very well in 2020, right? They actually gained back a lot of seats. They gained back a couple seats that were lost, but they were able to hold fast. You didn't see this blue wave going through, so we could be seeing a trend back in the direction of Texas becoming a more red state. And if that happens, you'll be able to do this. But the way that you get things to the floor, the way that you get your agenda passed is to get elected. It's not to change the rules when you weren't elected. That's stupid. That's what aggressive politicians do. And we can't do this, right? Texas needs to remain gridlocked, right? I want to make that a hashtag, right?
Gridlock's awesome.
Keep Texas gridlocked. And if it means nothing gets done, then it means nothing gets done. That's fine. I'm totally okay with that. And this is another thing, and I'm
glad we have no opinions on this, Nick.
Well, this is another thing, and so many people say, "Oh, the government doesn't do anything." Great, a government that doesn't do anything the government that doesn't do anything is a good government, right? The thing is when you hear politicians,
Nick, who found that job for you that you work in right now?
I did.
Oh, why didn't someone hand it to you? You should be handed this job,
yeah.
Nick.
This is the thing, though, is when politicians, left and right, come up onto the stump and say, I'm a guy who will get things done. That immediately says, man, I am not voting for you.
You're too ambitious. It's not all about you. You're not the one that has the best ideas. Just because you have a lot of Twitter following does not mean you have great ideas.
So Republicans, chill.
Chill pill.
Really, this is not necessary. Just chill. Wait it out. If nothing gets done this session, nothing gets done this session. But do what you can for your constituents within the parameters that are already established. Do not change the rules because you don't like them. That's not how government works. That's not how democracy works. And I know that we're a Republic of Texas. We're not a democracy of Texas. But that's not how our system of government is designed. No. Our system of government is designed to have the people speak, and then you work within the parameters that the people say.
Correct.
So.
All right. And the last one was Rona. We've beat that dead horse already. That's the 3 hot topics for the day, Nick.
3 hots. 3 hot topics for the day.
3 hots and a cup.
That's what we're calling it, 3 hots? 3 hot ones? Something like that.
We got
to come up with some names, guys. If you guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, put down in the comments what you think for the name of the podcast, the name of the different segments. We are trying to restructure this, and we do value your opinion. We're not necessarily going to pick anything.
I'm probably not going to listen to you.
Yeah, we probably won't listen to you. But your opinion is still appreciated. We might just give you a little pat on the head.
If you want to berate us on how wrong we are, that's fun too.
That's totally fine. That being said, guys, this has been the first installment of the new Local Matters podcast, which is probably going to be a different name by the time we get up here next time. But we'll James, do you have any parting words to your new fan base on your new permanent podcast?
Permanent podcast. Yeah. I appreciate you loving gingers.
We don't. But...
Well, numbers don't lie, Nick. You said it yourself. I just want to say, just keep a watch. Again, like I said for Biden, like it's probably like Nick said even as well. It's probably not something that's going to continue, but actually keep watching it because just because your side won, if you are on that side, you're allowing too much power, and eventually a Republican will be back in office. And it's not going to go well if you allowed all this because precedent has been set. So keep a watchful eye on your executive orders. Keep a watchful eye on our governor, and just respect everybody else.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, government is frustrating. Rona's even more frustrating. But Texas matters, friends.